Hey folks, how's it going? Sorry I got in a little bit late. Can everybody hear me? Thank you for that, Robert. Robert said it feels like it's being at a concert. Waiting for the guy whose hair's all messed up. Look at this weird mess going on over here. Why so late tonight? Man, I'm telling you right now, work obligations is all I can tell you. We are slammed big time, and we are shorthanded because everybody's sick. And not everybody has COVID. We had 4 people with COVID, and then 2 that they didn't have COVID. We don't know what they had, but it wasn't COVID, and it's not strep, and I don't know what it is, but they were sick. And so we got COVID going around, and we got some other weird thing going around, which is just ravaging my ranks. And so me and Anthony and my wife and everybody have just been out there working every night. And I got some good news and some bad news. The good news is the conference is not this coming weekend, but the weekend after. And there's still some tickets left. But a lot of people are saying they're going to buy at the door. I don't suggest that because you may not get in. Because we have a finite number of tickets, and we have a finite number of tickets left. The good news is right now I'm still healthy. The bad news is I may not be. Because I may have been exposed to people who were sick with, I don't know what all they had. So far, I don't think I was exposed to COVID, but 2 people that were sick with, they don't know what it is because they both went to the doctor and they were negative for COVID, but they had something. So I just got to wait and see. If I get sick and I can't make it, the conference will go on without me. We're hoping against hope that doesn't happen. So I really need your prayers and your good thoughts and your vibes or whatever it is you're into. Send me good energy, please, and prayers. I need them so that I don't get sick and then I can't make the conference. I was on the phone with Ken earlier as we were trying to get set up. I was out running around trying to get stuff done for my job. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. We, as of right now, we are abandoning our podcast platforms. Not necessarily the podcast show, but we are going to be, and it really wasn't good timing because we really needed to stay on those platforms going into the conference. But Anthony made the decision, and I didn't even know. I kind of suspected, but I wasn't for sure because I had so much going on. If you can believe, I don't even know. And so thank you for that donation, Liberty. Says, really looking forward to meeting you at the conference. And please, folks, don't feel obligated to donate, but they are greatly appreciated, especially going to this conference. It's looking like I'm going to be well under breaking even. So, but that's fine. It's a first one, and I'm not going to say there's going to be another because I don't know if I want to go through this again. There's a lot to talk about this whole thing. I think we're going to be taking an indefinite hiatus after the conference. It's not really what I want to do, but financially, it's not making sense to keep this going. That's why Anthony canceled the other platforms, because we're making jack poop off of the other. We're not making anything. And every time I talk to someone, they're like, oh yeah, I listen to you on Spotify. Well, Spotify does not give us anything monetarily. And so it was fine to do the show for free for a couple years, but now 3 years and I'm still not, it's not going the way that we had hoped. Let's put it that way, financially. So we may be taking an indefinite hiatus after the conference. In fact, I know we are going to be on a hiatus, but I don't know for how long. Because we have a lot to think about. Anthony's going to be probably taking a job, an architecture job. He just won't have time to help me with the show. or the business, and I have to make a choice, the show or the business. The show doesn't give me anything financially. It does, but very little. And it takes up an inordinately large amount of my time that I could be dedicating toward growing my business, which I need to start focusing on. We had got some land, and the most incompetent people you can imagine, just not helping, not doing what, so I need to start focusing on figuring out a way to get this property developed. And that's going to take up a lot of my time, and the other time's going to be spent running my business and growing it. And so I won't, I'm just going to see how the conference goes. I'm going to see how all this plays out before we, because obviously, these companies that we're using to put out our shows on these podcast platforms, one of them makes it absolutely, dang near impossible without a giant headache to monetize. And the other one is like, they don't even have like a real clear-cut way to do it. Like, they're working on it or something. And so I'm going like, we went from one to the other, but it's like same boss, a new boss, same as the old boss. So it's not helping. So the only platform that we really get anything from is YouTube. So why are we putting ourselves on these other platforms? If people want to listen to the show, they're just going to have to come to YouTube. And you people obviously know that because you're here listening right now. But I'd say half of our listeners are on these podcast platforms that don't do anything for us. And every time I talk to someone, they're like, oh yeah, I listen to you on Spotify. I listen to you on, iTunes. But that doesn't do anything for us. And we need a financial, base to be able to continue the show. And I got to be able to justify all the time that I put into this. Yeah, Overbuilt Automotive stream live from home. It's home studio. It's the same thing. I'm still got to, whether I'm here at the studio's right here by one of my main accounts, so it's not getting to the studio. And it's also the office. We have the office right next to us. So it's not really, that's not the issue. The issue is time. It takes a lot of time to interview people. It takes a lot of time to get these stories together and get a show prepared. And I got to do this week in and week out, Tuesday and Friday. And so I don't know if there's going to be a show this Friday or next Friday. In fact, I know there won't be a show next Friday because I'll be traveling. I'll be on the road with Ken and with Lyle, Nick, and all those guys. We're going to all be heading to the conference not this weekend, but next weekend. So, yeah. I'm just, Davy Jones says, how about pick a lane, this or that? What do you mean? What are you talking about? Pick a lane. Have Mushu run the show while you're out. Yeah, that'll work out real good. Mushu is not, he can't even run his Facebook group. He's not even in the chat tonight. I can tell you that right now. The dude is not interested in helping with that. Okay, he's working, making his money, whatever, and that's, he's not, like, he likes to do the co-hosting and stuff. He doesn't want to be involved in any other aspect of the show. Let's put it that way. Like, we have talked to him multiple times about working on his group, and he doesn't even want to do that. So, yeah. So I got a guest coming on. So I would say plan on this Tuesday and maybe next Tuesday. And then we'll see what happens from there. Oh, gosh. Yeah, because the thing is, thank you for that donation. There's a PRT website, and see how many of us will part with $10 and support you. Split shows 50-50, half on YouTube, and free ETs, and so forth. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll see what happens. Like, I had somebody tell me today that they love my show and that they only watch the podcast. They don't watch the live streams because they work during the live stream. And I'm like, that right there tells me that they don't look at the YouTube channel at all. Because if they did, then they would know, that person would know that you can watch they're archived. The live streams are archived. And they were just like, oh, I don't catch the live streams because I have to work. You don't have to catch them. You can watch them afterwards. But that person's not even aware of it. So I feel like when I'm doing this part of the show, I'm getting a smaller audience because it's people that go to YouTube and watch YouTube. Whereas on the podcast, you reach a larger, wider audience because you get all these viewers that listen to you on all these different platforms. And they're all complaining that we're not dropping them on these platforms. And I just saw that complaining in the last 2 or 3 weeks and didn't even have the time to talk to Anthony about it, or I didn't remember it, And finally I said, hey, what's going on? And he said, dude, we're not doing it, we're not doing it anymore. We're just straight up YouTube and, not getting anything out of, just reading some of the comments here. So Anthony made a business decision. Didn't tell me, but I'm not opposed to it. So I get it because there's nothing. And so, yeah, I'm sorry. I just can't justify how long we'll be gone or out of, obviously we won't have a show next weekend. And if I can't get something recorded this week with the people that I've been trying to pin down to record with, then there's no show this week on Friday. And I guess that may be it. I'm probably going to just let that. It's to me, it's gonna be like a sign. If I can put it together and put a show together this Friday, then I'll do it. But if not, then you know what? That may be it. At least for a while. I may return. I mean, you never know. I'm not going to say never, or I'm going to say this is an absolute, because I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I love you all, and I like doing the show, and I want you to know that it's been a heck of a ride, and I've enjoyed it, and I love what I do. But it just doesn't make economic sense for me to keep doing this for free. That's all. I mean, I appreciate everybody who donates through the Patreon, and everybody who donates on the show. Typically the same people. Seems to be, I know money's tight. I know money's whatever it is, but like I said, I'm losing me and Anthony Peace about $200 each by doing this tonight. So it cost us about $400 off of our day, because this is a work night for us. So we have to take off and we have to pay somebody to do our assignments. And it's an assignment that generates about $220, $230 a night. I guess that's about right, yeah. So we're losing about $460, $440 to $460 on a Tuesday to do the show. That's a lot of money. And there's no way to make it up through donations and whatever. Yeah, and I agree with that. Somebody just said, Simone Freeman says, it's a smart business decision to only do YouTube Hey, Anthony, can you grab my glasses? Says you might find a huge uptick once everyone realizes this is where to go. Eddie Fetch says, how about a monthly show? Oh, folks, I'm trying to get my glasses here. Let me get them on. Hey, can I get my other ones? Are they out? Are they in there? Yeah, because he's trying to see them right now. Thanks. Let me get my glasses on so I can read the deal better, folks. I do have a couple stories, and then I'm going to get to the guest. And like I said, if I can find a way to get this done, I will. Because this is something that I enjoy. It says, Josh, is your channel monetized? Yes, it is. But we don't put a lot of ads on there. We try to keep the ads to a minimum. And when you do that, it's good for the listeners, but it hurts us financially. And we are approaching 19,000 subscribers on YouTube. But YouTube goes by views, not subscribers. Subscribers is a good barometer to see like how much you're growing, but a lot of people don't watch like every show. You know, you have some of the people that watch you religiously, and unfortunately, a lot of them are just listening to me on Spotify. I mean, it's killing me, dude, because that's all they do. They only listen to it on Spotify or whatever those other platforms. There's 12 of them or 13 of them, something like that, if you count YouTube. But they only listen to me on Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, Apple, whatever, Google Tunes, whatever. They listen to us on all these other platforms, and we're not getting a dime. And like I said, I didn't start this out to make money, but it began to be a financial drain because we're putting tons and tons of money into this thing, and we're getting a fraction of that back. Just for this conference alone, I'm going to lose several grand. So, I'm not one to make bad investments. I try to invest correctly, and this was never meant to be, but now it's become a business. I have to file taxes with this and everything else. So, it is what it is. You have to try to get something back out of it if you're going to spend so much. Corley says he wants to do the interview for Friday. Let me know, Corley, if you want to record with me. You have a good story to tell. You can stand in. There's two people that was going to record with, and it just seemed like it kind of fell through the cracks. And so I'm sitting here going like, maybe it's a sign. I mean, I look at things like that. And so Tax says, I thought this was about Bigfoot. No, it's not. So anyways, let me read the Patreon. Adam Jinx, Andrew, Brady Matsunaga, David Vigil, Enid Kindley, Fat Squatch, Jason Paul Tyson, Jim Kovach, Joyce Burnett, Lauren Russo, Maynard W, Melissa, Michael Turner, Miguel Guerra, Polly G, Peter Herlamos, Ricardo Ramirez, Spencer Riley, Steven Rivas, Tim Bernard, Titan, Vicky Walker, Barbara Blendy, Cassidy Lee, Charles Hamill, Cluffysaurus Rex, pretty sure that's Chris Clough, Curtis Turner, Sarilli, David Allman, Dead Man Walking, Debbie Wolf, Deborah Patterson, Derek Tribble, Dick Richards, Gloria Smith, Graydon McKee, Guy, Helder Ortega, James Estrada, Kenny Irish, Christy, Martin Hertel, Mary Plyler, Matthew Durgo, Melissa Koyman, Mimi Piccolelli, Pauline Rome, Ricardo Herrera, Shonda Hardinger, Sonia Girding. Extreme Reality Check, Tim Lewis, Terry Fusler, Taylor Alexandra Oric, Susan Woodcarver, and Super Hornet 1. And see, and now we've actually lost. We've lost some people here. Well, that's not good. Yeah, and seeing I've lost a bunch of Patreon members too, which is another. Dorothy Metcalf says, "Where's my name?" I don't know, Dorothy. Let me see if it's on there. Well, that's weird. Dorothy's name's not on here. I don't know why it's not showing up. Maybe you got kicked off on accident or something, because this stuff's so weird, man. Like, I don't know why you're not showing up on here, Dorothy. I don't know. It's not showing you up here on the Patreon. If you're a Patreon and your name didn't get, whatever, you might want to go check and see if you're still on there as a Patreon member, because, yeah, I'll tell you. Anyways, I had a story that I wanted to tell. This was a ghost story that I was supposed to tell a few weeks back, and then it just kind of fell through the cracks. This one happened in San Antonio at the River Center Mall. I don't know if anybody knows where that's at. If you're from Texas and you've been to the Alamo, or if you're from outer space and you've landed on Earth and you've been to the Alamo, then you know that this place is the River Center Mall. It's right there in San Antonio. Okay, so, I mean, just give you some background. This was a security that told me this happened like years ago. I think it was like 15, 20 years ago. And they told us this story. They told us this story. Thank you, Kim Lugia 27. Thank you for that donation. Anyway, the security was telling me and my friends, we went there on a little trip or whatever, and we were in the food court, and we stopped and we're talking to security, and I told him, yeah, I do security part-time. At that time, I did security part-time. I wasn't a full-time guard. I actually worked at a nightclub. I ran a nightclub for a while too. And so I told him, I said, I have a story for you about a mall, working in a mall. I told him when I was doing security that I had something weird happen to me or whatever. And so the one guy goes, hold on. So he gets on his radio and he calls this guy. The guy's name was, I think his name was Clifford or Clyde. I don't remember. Anyways, he showed up. He's a big guy and real friendly. And I stayed friends with him for a couple of years until he quit working there. And I would go to San Antonio quite often. And he swore up down this was the truth. And he said that this had happened a few years before that. And so I'd say this was probably, I don't know, Scorpion, you were there. I don't know what year that was. And D, you might have been there too. And I think maybe Jerome was with us. But we were all hanging out together. Those are friends of mine and my brother. We were all hanging out. And this guy told us this crazy story. Well, part of the mall is where the Battle of the Alamo took place. Now, folks, when you go to the Alamo, if you ever go, and you really should go, because the place, that and Goliad, okay, were two of the places I like to go visit regularly. There's such a weird energy there, and it's where the Texas took shape. Texas, the Texans decided that they didn't want to be under Mexican rule. Mexico was imposing heavy taxes, and they were giving them nothing for it. It was like King George with the British. King George was like, that's what led to the Boston Tea Party. And, there's a tax on this and a tax on that, and there's no representation. The Americans weren't getting any representation in Parliament, and why should we give you taxes? Well, the Texans felt the same way. Santa Anna was like, we're going to tax you, we want this, we want that, and what do we get for it? Nothing. Are you going to protect us from the Comanches? No. Are you going to protect us from the bandits? No. Are you going to help us build anything? Are you going to give us water, build an aqueduct, anything? No. But you want taxes? Yes. I want like 30-40% of your money. So it broke down to money. The Texans were like, we're not going to pay you. And the Tejanos that lived there too. There were Mexicans that lived there called Tejanos. They lived on this side of the Rio Grande, and they were a part of the revolt. And in fact, they may have been the ones that actually triggered it, because they were the go-between. And they told the Texans, hey, we're getting screwed here, dude. All right, we're getting no protection. We're not getting anything. We're just being told what to do, and we're being told to give a bunch of our money away. So there was a war, the Texas War of Independence, 1836, and all this other stuff happened, blah, 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 in the 1830s. Anyway, we're not getting into all that. The Battle of the Alamo encompassed a huge, and it was pivotal, but it wasn't necessary. Santa Anna really made a mistake because he decided he was going to teach the Texans a lesson. San Antonio was not strategic. It was not super important to the war effort, but many famous people like Colonel Travis and Fannin and what's his name, Jim Bowie, Crockett, Davy Crockett, they were all there and they were known very well. David Crockett was a U.S. Congressman. And so they went there to fight. A lot of Tennesseans and Kentuckians, in particular those two states, sent a large number of people to go and fight for Texas independence. And Tennessee became our sister state, which it still is to this day. And it's funny because the conference we're having is in Tennessee, go figure. But that doesn't have anything to do with this. The area around the Alamo became a shrine, and it became a rallying cry that when the Battle of San Jacinto took place in near Houston, and it's named after Sam Houston, the first president of the Texas Republic, they used that. They remember Goliad, remember the Alamo, and it was a horrible mistake that the Mexicans made, Santa Anna made, because if he would have ignored the Tejanos and the Texans and San Antonio and just went on to fight them, where the real bulk of their military was, instead of wasting time with places like Goliad and taking, Gonzales and San Antonio, he needed to draw them out into the open. And instead, he went and wasted, resources and manpower fighting at the Alamo. What the Alamo did, though, was not only did it create a rallying cry and was a beacon for them to rally around, for everybody to, but he lost a bunch of men. The estimates are anywhere between 1,200 and 1,600 Mexican soldiers were killed by the Texans. I mean, in contrast, the Texans lost 160 people. It was not, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know, my history is pretty good, but I got so many dates and numbers. I think that's correct, but if anybody wants to look it up, go look it up to make sure that those numbers are correct. In fact, Scorpion or somebody you can look that up for me. I see you're the only one narrating. Can somebody excuse tack? He says, you being snarky and passive aggressive could have something to do with your ability to make money. Dude, I make plenty of money, just not from the show. And go ahead and ban him too. Get him out of here. Whatever. Regardless, you're not going to be a part of the show. And I noticed you posted it 3 times. Yeah, I don't think that's the case, sir. I don't think that's what it is. But anyway, it's called getting people to come to your platform. That's what's the issue. Like I was saying before, Tack was with his tacky self interrupted me. The Alamo became like a symbol for freedom. But when you look at the numbers of people that died there, the Alamo. If you go look at the Alamo now, right? It's not just that little spot where the Alamo is. That is the actual building, the main building, and then the 3 little whatever outcrop buildings. It was a huge fence around all the way to across the street, where now sits the Ripley's, believe it or not, and all these different places. I like those places. They're really cool. They're talking about taking all those out now and turning the whole thing into one giant recreating it how it was. And that sounds good, but I like the entertainment area around the Alamo, and it all grew up around the Alamo. And the River Center Mall is no different. That mall, where that mall is built, people died. There was a fence, the wall that went around that side where the River Center Mall is, goes right through the middle of it. If you look at a map of where at the Alamo, which I have, it encompasses part of that mall. And so it's crazy when you look at how many people died there. Okay. I believe I might have told this story, but you get these all the time. There was a story that was given to me about some people that worked in a bookstore there. at the mall. This one, I don't know if I've told this one or not, but they saw what they thought was a Mexican soldier holding his throat. And I mean, they saw it, like clearly he had a blue uniform, the white, because their uniforms mimicked the French uniforms, because Santa Anna envisioned himself as the Napoleon of the West. He was the conqueror. He was this and that, And he was a really smart guy. I read about him, but he made some critical errors as a general. Now, as far as getting to power and all things he did, he was pretty cunning. But he also was a bit of a sociopath, and he had some really choice things to say about slavery, not the way you think it would be. Like, he was against slavery, but not because, and in his own words, it had nothing to do with him feeling any sort of pity or sadness for the slaves, the African slaves. He thought they're going to revolt one day, and he didn't want them running around loose in Mexico. He was absolutely against having black people in Mexico. He didn't want them there. And he thought eventually that there would be a revolt, and then they would be running amok all over the South. And because he visited the South, he went all over the South, and he thought it's ridiculous that they have all these people here, that there could be a problem because the slaves were a large number of them. And so he was worried about that. So that's the kind of person he was. He wasn't worried about any other reason. He wasn't like, oh, I feel sorry for these poor people. They are in bondage to the Texans or whatever, or the Southerners. He was just worried about what happens if they get loose, and he thought, yeah, it's a great idea to have slaves if you could keep them under control. And in effect, he did. There was a sort of a caste system in Mexico, which also made Texas an attractive destination for Mexicans who were poor, trying to get out of out from underneath the crushing tyranny of Santa Anna. And so if you go back and you read, and these people that don't know history, they'll say things like, oh, yeah, Santa Anna he got the bad deal, blah, blah, blah. He was a leader, but he wasn't a good guy. I can tell you that. He was willing to sacrifice a lot of his own people just to take the Alamo, which was just a rickety old fort that wasn't strategic at all. And in the end, it cost him big time. But a lot of people died there. And when that many people die in a conflict, let me tell you something, dude. There's residual hauntings that take place, but I think that there are also conscious hauntings that take place too. And there's a lot of stories that go around the Alamo area, people seeing to this day what look like Texan and Mexican soldiers just appearing out of nowhere. And in this bookstore, this lady said that this soldier appeared out of nowhere. And that's not the only one I've gotten. I've gotten several of them. There was a theater where they claimed that, and I think I might have told that story already, but there are so many stories of these Mexican soldiers and Texans, like just popping up out of nowhere and looking out of place and then kind of vanishing. So anyway, the River Center Mall is what it is. It's known to be haunted. Mike Turner, thank you for that donation. Mike, I hope to see you at the conference. And so what happened was, this guy, and I really wish I could remember his name, started with a C, but anyway, Clifford or Clyde or whatever, he told us this crazy story. And like I said, he had a nickname, and that's what I always called him. He's kind of a big guy. So he told me, he said one day there was a guy that was reported to be looking into cars in the parking garage. And I've been in this parking garage many times. And he said that basically somebody came in and said, hey man, there's a guy, he's looking into cars, he looks like he's about to break in, he's got something in his hand. So him and two other guards go meet out in the parking garage area, and they go around, they sweep the area, they walk through, and they see a guy wearing a hoodie, which, it wasn't like it was summertime and you're like, okay, this guy's wearing a hoodie, this is obviously out of place. No, he said it was like, early spring, and it was a little cool, so it made sense that this guy was wearing a hoodie. But what was weird was the guy was wearing a hoodie, and he had on these weird looking gloves, and it was completely covered in black, and they thought, okay, this guy's up to something. When they began to go toward the guy to confront him, he ducked down, and they still, to this day, he doesn't know how this happened, but the guy ducked down between two cars. He said there was a sedan and an SUV, and they thought, okay, we got him. So they go and they look under the cars. Now, my friend, he was a big guy. All right. And they called him Jelly. That's what we called him. That was his nickname that we kind of gave him. We joked because he was always eating donuts, jelly donuts. And I said, man, you're going you shouldn't be eating those, blah, blah, blah. And so we would mess with each other. And I was heavy too, but not that heavy back then. But he would tease me too. He said, well, you're on your way, So we'd always call him Jelly. And so I said, where did this guy go, Jelly? And he's like, looks down, and he says, well, look, he's told me this story a couple times, different people I brought with me. And if he was there, he'd tell them. Never changed. The story never changed. It was always the same. And he said that there was nowhere for this guy to go. Then one of the guards who had walked around the other side of the building sees a guy walking out of the garage, fitting the description. And he says that the guy gets on the radio and he's like, I think I see the guy. And so Billy and his guys, they were like, okay, we'll stop him. And then they just hear like a static and kind of a gargled, they couldn't make it out. Then they messaged him back and they said, what was that? We couldn't get that last transmission. As they're running down the garage to try to find this guy, why he was hiding, why he was running, nobody knows. But he did freak a couple people out. And there was one lady who went into the building and was sitting down and couldn't talk and was just kind of out of her mind that this guy, I guess, had accosted her in some way or had gotten in her face, I guess. So one of the guards inside says, hey guys, you might want to hear this. This is weird, okay? That's what he said over the radio. Then the other guard says, hey, I'll be there in a minute, but we're dealing with this other guard. We'll call him Steve. Steve, the guard, because I don't know his name, he was out by the entrance the entrance exit to the garage. When they get down to the bottom of the hill, he's leaned over like he's out of breath. And they're like, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm just lightheaded. And so when they all went inside, and then one of the other guards was inside, he was questioning the lady. The police had been called at this point. She was hysterical. What she told the police coincided with what Steve, the guy on the outside, saw. This was not seen by the other two guards, or three guards, I guess. They said the guy had no face. Now, when you tell somebody that they have no face, like I was curious. I was like, what do you mean? It was just like a white, was he wearing like a white shield? One of those kind of masks where you can kind of see through? Because I saw one a couple Halloweens ago. And I've heard of people with no face, and I thought, what is this? I showed my wife, I said, what is this? Maybe this is the no face guy, whatever. Could be, I don't know. I mean, that could be it. It might not be. Thank you for that donation. I appreciate that, SC. Appreciate it. And it says, the T. Cutler, love you, Josh, and love your shows. Can't make it to the conference, but I support what you do. You're a scientist in Missouri. Thank you so much. I wish you could make it. I wish everybody could make it. But it's crazy because it was like the description that the guard Steve gave was the same description that this lady, and she had her, I think, daughter and her friend, or daughter's friend with her. They caught a glimpse of her because the mother was kind of lagging behind. And yeah, see, Ken Gerhardt just said, there are plenty of strange figures in 1830s era clothing manifesting on the grounds of the Alamo on any given day. They are period actors hired to educate the visitors. Okay. That's not what we're talking about here, Ken. I'm talking about people that actually disappear, okay? These people are not going around. That's on the grounds of the Alamo. We're talking about the River Center Mall. Ken, you live there. You should go find some spooks for us, man. Go find some ghouls, okay? That's what you should be doing. Yeah, Grace W says, I've heard of the no-face thing before. Yikes. So, like I said, multiple times I went there and with different people, different friends, until this guy was no longer working there. But he told that story, and it never changed. Like, he didn't add to it. He didn't take away from it. That's the story he told. So, and the first time I heard it, we just kind of hit it off. I'm like that with some people. I just hit it off with them, and we're friends, and we just stay friends, for a long time. I don't know whatever happened to the guy, but I know that one of his friends one of his roommates or something used to work at there's a restaurant right there. I think it's called Lucy's or something. It was a chicken fried steak place. I mean, and it was like they eat the whole chicken fried steak. And I kind of kept up with him through that dude, but then that dude quit working there. But I don't know. It was like if this chicken fried steak this big. I'm not joking, but if you eat it along with the sides, which is just like fries and biscuits or something, or rolls. You get it for free, and it's like a $35-$40 meal or something. But I don't think anybody could do it, you know, because me and some of my friends went back when we were, you know, could eat like that, and none of us could do it. But anyway, San Antonio is a very cool place, and it's a very, very haunted place, and you get a lot of weird stories, especially in the south side of San Antonio, going out toward this, and then going, like if you go from San Antonio to Kerrville, that's a Dogman Bigfoot haven, dude. Like you get stories of Dogman and Bigfoot out there like all the time. And sometimes you get like I had somebody tell me a story, and I haven't told this one yet, but they claim to have seen Bigfoot on the way to Kerrville, and then the next day they saw what they thought was a Dogman on the way back to San Antonio. And then the Bandera area, that too, you know, that's all outside of San Antonio. That is, you know, there's some weird stuff out there, dude. You get some weird stories. I get a lot of UFO reports between New Braunfels in there, more going toward the west. So if you go toward the west of San Antonio, like there's a lot of weird stuff. And then near the Air Force bases, I know that me and Ken, when Ken was on my show the first time, Ken, I don't know if you remember this, but we talked about your book, The Essential Guide to Bigfoot. I think it had just come out. And you and me and my old co-host Armando, God rest his soul, we talked about Bigfoot around the Air Force base area. And we did discuss those sightings in that area. So there's a lot of weird stuff around San Antonio. Chupacabras, both the blue dog kind and the little jumping kind. I've heard stories going toward the east of San Antonio. Don't get excited, not a lot. I've only heard one of the little jumping one. It looked like a little jumping reptilian, but the person described it as a chupacabra, which, you know, people are going to say what they're going to say. They're going to call something what they're going to call it. But typically people give me a story and I just decide, you know, hey, this is what it is. But if somebody who's listened to my show enough, then they start saying, well, I think it was this, or it was a gargoyle, you know. Whereas in the early goings of the show, I just kind of decided for myself what I thought it was. Now people who listen to the show, they kind of say, you know, hey, this is what I think it is. But the no face, it scared the heck out of these people. And what they described, Steve had really bad dreams for like a month. And then finally he ended up having to go quit his job. He finally had to go and get help. And so according to what Jelly told me, this guy, he had a nervous breakdown. And it was like he kept thinking he saw this, like he was seeing it everywhere, you know, which if it was just him that saw it and then he just kept seeing it everywhere he went, he kept thinking he was seeing this, you would say, okay, this story is bullcrap because it's just a guy that escaped somehow, you know, Houdini, he did a pull to Houdini and then he scared Steve. But that's not what happened. This thing walked right up to a woman who, the way that she described it to the guards and to the police wasn't like it came up in a threatening manner. He just went up to her and just kind of like looked at her, moved his head around a little bit, and then just walked past her. But it terrified her. And she said that the face was like not just a no face, but like a void. And when you looked into it, she said you felt like there was this anxiety that was just going to suck her in to this thing, like he was a soul sucker, as you know, like that's the word I came up with, like a soul sucker type entity. And I do believe it was an entity because he was cornered, and when he ducked down, 2-3 guys come, boom, he's gone. You know, where did he go? And then he reappears, you know, and then on camera, when they showed it on camera, all you see is a blur, like him go down, and then there's a blur, a guy running out toward the garage, out of the garage, and running right past, really quickly past the guard Steve, who claimed it wasn't that fast. That on camera it looked like it was speeded up, but in reality he just walked right by it, and he looked right at him, and he said he turned his head toward him, and he said there was no face. Now, my friend still was in contact with this individual, and this, like I said, was probably 20 years ago. I know it's been a long time. Scorp might remember what year it was. I don't know. But when we first met him. But he told us that this guy, told him that it was like that. What the woman said, it was like there was this void there, you know, and it gave him a super heightened sense of depression and anxiety. Why this entity was there, I got a few theories about that. I'm not going to get into a whole bevy of theories, but I think that these kind of entities are attracted to battlefield massacres and things like that. I think that they show up in places. Does that make sense? And they suck in the energy. That's what I think. One of the things, too, about the Alamo, which I've always thought was strange, was that Emily Morgan Hotel is in USA Today a few years ago had a poll, and it was voted the second most haunted hotel in the entire country. I stayed there purely by coincidence. Well, if you want to call it coincidence, chance, whatever. I don't really believe in that, but we had a few weird experiences there. Me, my wife, Tony, and Anthony. We had the phone, we had the water coming on, we had the TV coming on, the water turning off and on. It was weird. The phone was take off the hook every time we come back, it would be turned around and moved. You know, I mean, it was some weird stuff. And my wife thought that I had purposely chosen that hotel. I didn't. And in fact, I don't think I was the one that chose it. I think Anthony chose it through Expedia or something, and we were coming back from the coast, and he was like, we're going to stay at the Emily Morgan. I didn't think nothing of it. I hadn't even researched Emily Morgan. I knew the Manger was haunted, you know, but I didn't know much about the Emily Morgan. And then the people that worked there were like, well, yeah. And she's like, technically we're not supposed to talk about it, but yeah, it is haunted. And one of the bartenders was like, heck yeah, it's haunted. Guy was serving drinks right there. Right across from the Alamo. You could see the Alamo. I believe the north wall is right there. You can see the north wall. And the guy's like serving drinks, you know, and he's like, there's a lady at the end, and she ordered something. I don't remember what he said it was because I had been drinking when he told me the story. And he says, I get everybody their drinks or whatever, and I go to hand her drink, and she's gone. And he's like, I'm looking around, like, where's this lady at? She's nowhere to be found. And he's like, she looked like she was from the 1800s. Not the 1830s, though. He said probably like the late 1800s. She was a very attractive woman, you know. You get those kind of stories all the time, man. It's really weird. Yeah, the bar in the Manger Hotel, and Ken says, is said to be haunted by the ghosts of Teddy Roosevelt and John Wayne. Davy Jones says, Josh, the knowledge you possess is extremely valuable, and everybody will support you behind a subscription wall. You're better than others that are already doing this. I appreciate it, man, but, you know, Davey, I appreciate it, but it's also a time thing, too. I just, you know, it's a very time-consuming deal, and it, you know, if it was something that I could say, hey, this might be a future for me to fall back on and do it, you know, as my only job, then I'd say, yeah, this is we're going to stick with this. But as of right now, I just don't know. But thank you for your support. And Ken says, I interviewed a guy who saw a white ghost dog or wolf at the old missions years ago. Yeah, that's weird. You get weird cryptid type stories too, like out of these missions. Apache Pass, which my friend Trey Felton, who's going to be doing the catering, he's written a book about it called The Jewel Harem. And if you read the book or whatever, he talks about the ghosts that are and all these weird stories that take place near Apache Pass, right outside of Thorndale, where he's from, that area. Stories of buried treasure and all kinds of stuff. And the missions there's a mission that's there. And people have claimed to have seen like a weird Bigfoot-like type creature like around one of the missions. Like this one guy literally was just going to find the bathroom. I just got this story like a few weeks ago, and I haven't had a chance to even go over it. But the overview is that there was a Bigfoot type creature watching him from the woods. So he ran back around to the front. It happened when he was like 16 or 17. And he's a grown man about my age now. But he said, dude, it freaked him out. Just like really freaked him out. Why these creatures show up in these, you know, missions, these Spanish missions, and I have no idea. Goliad, same thing, very haunted place. The grounds across the street where the Spanish mission was, because Goliad was the fort, and the Mexicans took the Mexican soldiers, they took the fort of Goliad, they killed it, they shot everybody, which set more rage and anger, and a lot of Americans were moving down to Texas to help fight. Because they were like, hey, you know, they're coming here and they're killing our kinsmen because they looked at Texas as, their kin, and so, and like I said, every day more and more Mexicans were defecting. Even Mexicans from their own Mexican army were like, I'm not going back to be oppressed by this dude. There are a lot of weird stories about people just completely saying, we're not going to do this. We're not on board with this. And so it just galvanized people against their cause because they were brutally killing everyone. And along the way, they were stopping and burning villages. And it was like, oh, are you loyal to Texas? Or are you a Mexican? And they were like, oh, well, we're Mexican. They're like, well, we don't believe you. Boom, we killed you. And so there was a lot of atrocities that took place too. That's little known, but it did happen. So the mission right across from Goliad, that's said to be very haunted, and I've gotten weird stories out of there too. I talked to a lady who was I guess, I don't know what you would say, like a curator, I don't know what they call it, but a ranger or whatever, park person, who said she was like, I won't be here after dark. She told me and my wife and everybody that was with me, she's like, I won't be here after dark. I just will not. She's like, I get out at 5 o'clock, and if it's in the wintertime, she's like, I'm out of here. I'm not sticking around. She's like, I haven't seen anything. She's like, but I've heard enough. And there are so many stories out of the Goliad. But it's a really cool place. If you visit Goliad, it's a really neat place, and it's very somber, because a lot of people were killed there. There was a horrible battle and a horrible massacre that took place there. And the area right across from it where the Spanish mission is it was there since like the 1600s. It's an old place. And you get a lot of weird stories out of there. When you walk through it, man, it's so, being in summertime too, and it was like, how did these people live here? It's like hotter than the surface of the sun. I was there like last year. It was like, it was so hot, or a year before, I guess. But anyway, all that being said, No Face, River Center Mall, story got from this guy. I guess it's just kind of, he never went on any shows and talked about it or whatever, so it just kind of maybe got forgotten, but maybe not by some of the people that worked there. I don't know if anybody's still there from 20-something years ago, but crazy story. So I promised everybody that I would tell that story when I was talking about on the episode, This Mall is Haunted. That's one of the stories that I didn't get to tell. And there is another one too, but not, I don't have time for it today. I'm going to go ahead and move on. And I have several Dogman stories, but I may just have to use those for this Friday coming up episode. I don't know about that yet. Or if there's going to be an episode, let's put it that way. Holly says, I haven't donated in a while, so hopefully this will help make up for that little bit. Being a PRT listener has opened up so many conversations for me with others regarding paranormal topics, cryptids, and I've learned so much. Thank you for that, Josh. Thank you, Holly, and thank you for everybody. Like I said, we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I've talked about quitting before because I just felt like it was something I kind of needed to do. Fistful of Groovy, thank you for that. Congrats on the conference there, buddy. Wish you luck with it. Thank you so much for that. It's not something I want to do, but it may come down to just simple time and money. And I just got to do what I got to do. I got to take care of my business because that's what keeps me going. I will, however, be writing a book. Maybe 2, maybe 3. I don't know. I may just start writing because I think I'm getting to where I'm pretty ready to do, like I got it together to do it. And so I just, if I'm not doing this, then that's what I'm going to be doing. In my spare time, I'll be writing about this stuff. You just can't convey as much, writing. I mean, I guess if you went to as many conferences as like Ken and Lyle and Nick Redfern and all those guys go to, they're always going to conferences, man. Those guys, they're always David Weatherly, they're always going to these conferences. And if you have more time and you write and you want your books to reach more people, I guess that's, how you do it. But people like me, I have to do this. So if I'm doing this, it's hard for me to be writing and doing this. Like Steve Stockton, he does this and he writes, which is remarkable. But he also doesn't have a full-time company that he's running either. Just like, with my friend Josh Nanokia. He's got his show, and he does really well. He makes a lot of money. He makes a lot of money doing what he does. He's really good at what he does, and he has his whole team. Kid's a genius. I say kid, he's, he's 30 whatever, but he's young, and he's good at what he does. He's one of the best at what he does, actually. And so when you look, at that guy, he's got a full-time gig, and that's just doing this. And then if you take Kenny Irish, he writes, but he's also got a full-time job. He works. Same thing with Jason Bland. Jason Bland's got a full Paranormal Soup. He's got a full-time job, and then he does this. And he manages, he's a retail. He manages Under Armour store. So it's like, how do you, it's crazy, dude, when you look at how much he puts in time and effort and he puts into it. It's a lot of work. Because he's like me. I'm full-time, whatever, and I got to do this. So, there's a reason why Kenny Irish writes books and works full-time. He's not doing full-time writing books and doing, a podcast. He's just doing one. He's writing, not doing a podcast. And Jason is doing this, not writing. Same thing with me. But to do this, write books, and work full-time, and have a company running, and try to get another one off the ground, there's not enough hours in the day. There just is not enough hours in the day. I would make a joke about it, but I'm not, because it's just not funny to me. So yeah. If I had more hours in the day, I'd say probably, yeah. So if I'm not doing this, then I can almost guarantee I'm going to be writing. My wife's already kind of started. We've been working on a book about ghosts. But now we have this full-time account we're doing. We're both having to work at night. So, it's just no bueno, dude. It's just like something's got to give. And you're going to have to let go with the economy heading into the recession. Well, we are in a recession. It's not heading. And the hyperinflation we're facing, that something has got to be economically, you got to pick what is economically viable, feasible for you. It says here, Anthony Zapata says, my mother worked at San Antonio Trunk, which used to be right across from the Alamo, around where Ripley's is now. She told me it was haunted. I grew up in San Antonio, and there's a lot of interesting places. Yep, you ain't lying. There's a lot of haunted stuff there. So let me get started with this guest. Jim Sapp says, these dark specters look like venom. They just rise up out of the ground in front of my window and walk off like they got a mission. I've heard that before, like many times, that they look like venom or they come dropping out of the ground, out of the ceiling. I got a story that out of Indianapolis, this lady said that this weird-looking creature came out of her from the ceiling she lives in, and she had a neighbor below her and a neighbor above her. She said that the thing came and dropped out of the ceiling. I believe she said she had a neighbor below her, so it was like it was coming from the neighbor above. That's crazy. So many stories, man. I don't know if I'll ever be able to. You can't write enough books, you can't do enough shows to tell them all. People have so many weird experiences. You can't discount it. It's just crazy. All right, so, man. My guest canceled on me. He's got a good reason. Corey Cole says he just sent me a message saying his comments aren't showing up in the chat. That's great. So here's something funny I wanted to share with you guys real quick before we move on. Now, this came from my friend Anna Shote, and she posted this meme, and I thought it was funny. And it's basically Homer Simpson. Okay, so it's Homer Simpson. He's sitting there with his glasses off. I don't know if anybody can see it. But it looks like that. Well, let me see if you can see it. The Homer Simpson. There you go. Anyways, it says, when someone asks you for your source on a complex subject you've been studying for 10 years, as if there's a single article on a government or a .gov website that will have all the answers to their questions in a bullet form list, written in a way that's quick and easy for their simple mind to comprehend. You know how many times that's happened to me? I'll tell somebody something, and you're giving them the absolute truth. You're telling, but what it is they're being willfully ignorant, and they don't want to hear it. And they don't want to hear what you're telling them. I have that problem right now with a loved one of mine. She doesn't want to hear what I have to say about a certain subject that gives you the answer. They would rather do mental gymnastics in their head, literally doing backflips and, cartwheels, dodging the truth like bullets on the Matrix, dude. Like going backwards, trying to dodge bullets flying at them, because they'd rather go through all that mentally than actually hear the truth. And they're literally trying to like, I told this one guy, I said, dude, Keanu Reeves got nothing on you, man. I said, you're dodging the truth like it's like you're getting shot at by one of the Smiths on the Matrix. I mean, do you have a source for that? Like you can like this meme just says. So James Stewart, I guess this person was the person that was in the middle of the meme or whatever. I don't know if you can see it. James Stewart says, so instead you just send them multiple sources that cover all the points needed, but then they reply by saying that they ain't got time to look at all of this. Yeah, that's what happens, because that has literally happened to me more times than I can count. You will sit there and tell them, that you need a source, and I've actually sat there and wasted my time with simpletons who, the heck? Oh, that's great. Freaking spider just touched my leg. That's great. You know how I love spiders. Great. Hey, Anthony. Literally talking here, and a spider just jumped on my leg, and I don't know where it went. Wasn't real big, but it was, There's a spider over on the other side of the dill. Can you see if you can destroy it? Grab the handgun and the battle axe. It's on the floor. I was just hoping if you could see it. Well, you get a flashlight. Try to kill it. It was brown. I don't want to be bitten by a brown recluse. Anyways, folks, sorry about that. It's been a weird night. You will give somebody information regardless of what it's about. Whether it's about economics, geopolitics, the paranormal, it doesn't matter. And they'll go, where's your source? That question, first of all, is them saying they don't believe you, and they don't want to believe you. So you have the impetus is on you to prove to this person, about.
It's also a trap, because even if you give them your source, they're just going to find a way to invalidate it somehow.
Yeah, they'll invalidate it somehow. So you're basically being, like Anthony just said, you're being trapped into giving this person, and we're wasting your time and energy. So whenever somebody does that, don't even bother. Whatever your situation is, whatever side you're leaning to, when that person does that or says that, like Anthony just said, it's basically just them trying to trap you, and so they don't have to hear what you have to say. Their mind is already made up, and you're wasting your time. Okay? So I'm going to try and do something else here. I'm going to change directions.
No, it's really a spider.
Yeah, it took off, I guess. My friend from Colombia, this is weird. Elias Lopez says, my friend from Colombia told me that he ran away from home once and saw a duende made out of plant material in the woods. That's weird. Yedicus says, you got any more stories from your childhood that you haven't told yet, Wolf? You know what? The other day because I've had a few like little, like, when I was a kid, I had like several little small things that happened. There wasn't any really except for this one house we lived in. And I lived in another house before that was haunted, but it wasn't overpowering. It wasn't like there was something bothering me at night. It wasn't grabbing my legs. It wasn't pulling me out of the bed and dragging me down. Nothing like that. But then we moved into this house out in the country. And I am convinced that place was haunted. And I think that the spirit there wasn't really totally interested in me. But it was there. I do believe it was there, and I believe that it was strong enough to where night before Thanksgiving, me and my cousins were all sleeping in my room, and I was like the second to the youngest. I think there was like maybe 3 or 4 older cousins. All the boys were sleeping in one room, and then the girls were sleeping in one room. And my mom was making Thanksgiving dinner, and she was up late, and her and my aunt were in the kitchen. I could hear them, and with my great aunt. And I remember seeing this shadow come walking down the hallway, and it was like it was dragging a bag behind it. Another time, this thing grabbed my great aunt and like in the shower, and the shower curtain kind of wrapped around her just for a minute. There were several things that happened. Something was like outside my sister's window, and she was on the second floor, like I was, And another time, it was like summertime, and I was like, school was just about to go back. And I was like, I remember that because I was kind of bummed out. And so I was like kind of sitting there messing with my action figures or whatever, and I think I was like playing with them, organizing them or something. And I was sitting on the floor, and I saw this like shadow appear, like somebody was standing behind me, but I knew it wasn't a person. And I just remember thinking, like my being angry about having to go back to school immediately disappeared, and I was like, I'm actually glad now because I get to be out of this house for about 10 hours a day. So that, yeah. And then finally something happened. I don't know, something scared my dad or something, and we moved out of there. He never did tell me exactly. I don't know. I think something happened. My mom always said she thought something happened, but stuff happened to her too. But other than that, there were just like little things that happened here and there, like being at a friend's house and their door, we were playing Nintendo and their door opened real slowly and we felt like a breeze blow through. We're like, whoa, what the heck? My friend had a pool when we were little, and this is true, man. Like several years before, it was back in the 70s, man. Not when I was little. I was a kid in the 80s, the mid to late 80s. But there was, back in the 70s, there was a kid that had drowned in that pool. And so we would swim in the pool, but get this, every now and then, like, and like I said, this isn't enough for like an entire show or anything, but I mean, like, I guess if you wrapped all of my childhood experiences together, you could probably maybe squeeze an episode out of it. I just remember, like, nothing ever happened to me, but my friend Tommy felt like something grabbed his leg, like a hand, like an arm, and it felt like a kid's hand or whatever. And years later, I was downtown working on 6th Street here in Austin, and a couple of my friends from back then came to visit. One of them had just gotten out of the Air Force in San Antonio, which is ironically it's funny, we were talking about that earlier. But Born Again podcast, what happened to Sal? He passed away from COVID. Complications from COVID, let's put it that way. So yeah, he's deceased, but God rest his soul. He was already not my co-host at that time when he passed away too. And we had just really started like talking again, and so it was a bummer. Like we kind of went our separate way for a while. He was really busy, really busy. He had a son with epilepsy and 2 kids in college. And I was very busy. And then we just kind of started talking again, and then he got sick. But I don't know. I hadn't seen him face to face for, probably at least a year and a half when he passed. And I regret that. I regret not making more time. You always do. You regret not making more time. He passed away right around the same time that Johnny Henderson from the Cryptid Studies Institute did. That's Elijah Henderson, who's going to be at the conference. That's his dad. He was a friend of mine, too. They both died from COVID. But anyway, there was a pool. Like I said, there was a pool. And I didn't like swimming in it. My other friend had a pool when we were growing up. His name was Ronnie, and we would play in that pool, whatever. But I did not like swimming in my other friend's pool because we didn't know until I was probably 12 or something. So I met these kids when I was 8. We became friends, all of us, from going to school together and living in the same neighborhood together. We were all a year or 2 apart. And one of the older kids said, "Hey, there was a kid that died in that pool at your house." And my friend didn't want to believe it. So he went and asked his mom and dad, which they denied it because they didn't want to scare him. Well, his older sister heard and said, yes, he did. He really did. There was a kid that died in that pool. And he did. He drowned. There was a kid that died. He was 7 or 8 years old. I don't know exactly how old he was. It was, And so when I found out about it, I said, well, that explains it. I always felt weird. I didn't like swimming there. Every now and then we could get into the pool and we'd be having a good time, and you just kind of forget about, the weird feeling. This is back when I didn't know that somebody had died there. But there was one part of the pool, when you got over to that side, it was shaded pretty heavily by a big storage shed and by the house. So when you got to that side of the pool, if you were over there kind of by yourself and everybody else was playing, because it was a big pool, or at least from a kid's perspective, it was a big pool. And so when I was over on that side of the pool, I did feel weird. I did feel like a weird energy. And I always thought, man, what are those places haunted? You know what I mean? And I told my friend, one time, because we would go over for sleepovers and stuff like that, especially in the summertime, or we'd have a weekend sleepover. And I told my friend one time, I said, dude, I get a weird vibe from your pool. It's weird, And then, when we got older, we were coming back from the summer. I had just come back from a summer vacation. Our summer break, whatever, and I had been out of town with my dad. I had gone to Colorado, which was one of the worst, most horrible memories of my life. I almost wrecked. Well, I did wreck. I wrecked a 4-wheeler because it was too big for me to control up in those mountains, and my dad was screaming and yelling at me the whole time. And when I ran into this boulder, I jumped off at the last minute and wrecked it. And I just remember my dad hitting me multiple times on that trip because I did whatever to make him mad, and my mom and dad's marriage was dissolving. So it was one of the most miserable memories of my life. I was glad to get back and go to school, and I was a person that hated school, so you can imagine how bad it was. But I just remember going over there one weekend right as school had started. It was in September, and we were swimming, and then they tell me, he goes, dude, I confirmed it, that this really did happen. This kid really did die. He died in this pool. And it was all I could do was kind of go, I knew it. I knew something, because I kept feeling weird vibes and weird energy there. And like I said, I didn't see anything, except one time I thought I saw the water kind of swirl around a little bit by itself. And I don't know. It just, like I said, other than that, though, I just had weird feelings, just weird feelings. And then I know his house was haunted. And the legends and stories tell us that when someone dies in water or near water, that their spirit becomes very strong. The natives had a really strong belief that a lot of native cultures, I can't even tell you how many I've read stories on, that when someone dies in the water, Like when David Wedley was on my show and we talked about the Alaskan legends or whatever, which I think was one of his best. The ones about Alaska really intrigued me, because we get into all kinds of stuff on that episode. And the natives, they had a legend. Some of the Alaskan, I can't tell you exactly which ones. There was a bunch of different ones he talked about. They had a legend of the Otter people. And it's more than one tribe has that same legend too. I don't know if they're the Inuits, but anyway, they had this different tribes, and they all had the same belief, which made it even more believable because they all thought the same thing. You know, there was this legend that these people, when they died in the water, they would become part of the Otter people, the Kushtaka. And it sounds silly. People are like, oh, an otter, you know, it's this cute little thing, you know, right? I mean, like, you know, why would an otter be, you know, but if it's giant looking and it's hairy and it looks like a giant otter on two legs, it's going to not look cute and fuzzy and cuddly and something you're going to want to take home. So, you know, you got those legends, and they said that the Kushtaka could be created by someone dying in the water. Someone goes in the water and they drown, then they become, you know, like this menacing creature or whatever. That happens quite a bit. There are some legends of people that when they die near the water, they become like this black water panther creature that comes out and slithers around. Sounds almost like a reptile, but it's not. It's like a panther. So you got all these weird stories and legends of the water. You cross over certain areas, bridges and whatever, and then you're going into another, you know, area. Then there's stories that supposedly these ghosts can't cross bridges. I know everybody's probably heard of the Sleepy Hollow, the Headless Horseman. Now, the guy that wrote the book, I mean, he didn't write it based on anything. It wasn't a true story. A lot of people will make the mistake and they'll say, oh yeah, there's a story of the Sleepy Hollow, the legend of Sleepy Hollow, and they'll talk about it like it's some sort of real story, you know, like, but it's not. It was a guy who simply wrote the story about it, and but anyway, the story of Sleepy Hollow is not real. It is based on the Headless Horseman, but it's also a story that you hear about a lot. I mean, you know, there's a Headless Horseman that supposedly runs around outside of Hoxie Bridge, and then there's a headless ghost that is seen on the bridge walking. They're not really related. They're two different things. One haunts that area where there was a plantation and he was a Confederate officer that was killed. And then the other was a convict from the 1920s, I believe, and he was shot and killed and then hung upside down. I mean, that's a true story. That really happened. I mean, it was basically an inmate that didn't want to cooperate, and they used him as an example. So... but everywhere you go, you get these stories of these like headless horsemen, you know, whatever. They're missing their head. There's another story here in Texas of a Spaniard that roams around West Texas. People see him all the time. I mean, you know, the last I heard was in Elkhorn, I think. Somebody told me that that story that they had seen a what looked like a Spanish conquistador helmet floating above what should have been something's head. And it was on a wispy-looking horse. Somebody also told me that there are stories and legends, and I know I've talked about this on the show, speaking of Sal, I did a show with Chief and Sal, and they talk about this bandit that was shot multiple times, and then he was beheaded and then put on a horse and just was tied to that horse, and his corpse was seen, you know, riding through the Texas countryside for years as it slowly rotted away. But then eventually people began to see this creature, or what do you want to call it? A spirit, a ghoul, an entity, a spook, I don't know what you want to call it, that looked like a ghost horse. with a guy's ghostly form on top of the horse, but still headless. Like maybe once the physical, apparition, whatever, was gone, a spirit took its place. I don't know how that works. I just know that supposedly the bandit that was beheaded, you can look this up. I don't even remember the name. That we went over the story, but it was full of bullet holes and arrows stuck in it because Elias Lopez says, my grandpa has a headless horseman story from the war in Guatemala. The 30-year Civil War, huh? Communism. That's interesting. I'd like to hear that. But, anyway, poor horse. I thought about that, too. I thought about that because the horse is the one that suffers. It has to have this corpse on its back, I don't have anybody here in the office that can look it up for me. I was thinking about starting to do the show with Mushu in tow and have him do something. He sit over there, but, we need him to work, so... Elias, are you from Guatemala? If you don't mind me asking on air. Mish, is that short for Michelle? Thank you for that donation. SC, any stories about mirrors or portals? Oh, yeah. Always. Yeah, a face in the crowd says a poor horse. I thought about that too because, the horse has to endure that. And then it's getting shot at and getting arrows shot at it because, people are scared. They see this, the thing's hands are tied behind its back, the corpse. And this thing was getting shot at and getting arrows plugged into it. But I don't know. You get a ton of these headless ghost stories. Anyway, Sleepy Hollow. This ghost could not cross the water. It couldn't cross the bridge. And so... I don't know if anybody's seen the movie Sleepy Hollow. Came out in 1999. And here it says, is the story of Sleepy Hollow real? Rooted in folklore as Rip Van Winkle and the legends of Sleepy Hollow they are not. In fact, popular legends and myths that sprang up during the early years of the United States, they are works of fiction penned by Washington Irving. I knew his name was Washington something, but I had to make sure. I don't want to say the wrong thing. And then I found an article here that talks about the legend behind Sleepy Hollow. So if you just go to look it up, it's pretty interesting. And it's more about Washington Irving and his mindset and what he's, who's the guest tonight? No one, because the guests had to bounce. So, I don't know. Corey Cole has messaged me and he's asking why his comments aren't showing up in the chat. He said he's been trying to comment for weeks. So anyway, moving on. Going back to my childhood. I was just telling Nellie a story the other day, and my wife, and it was it wasn't like a long story, but I remember hanging out with some friends and we were playing or something and we heard like a whisper or a voice. I'm just reading some of the comments here. Lance John Conlon says, look into the Kozyrev mirror experiments. Very interesting stuff. Feel like there's something to mirrors. There definitely is. What do you know about this, Lance? You should give us some more information here, because I'm not aware of what that is. Anyways, probably going to have to use some of these Dogman stories I got set up to do a show, probably for Friday if I'm going to make one. But I can give you one, because I wasn't planning on doing those tonight. Anyway, this is weird. This story came out of when I was talking recently about Abilene. I got somebody who said, hey, I used to live in Abilene, because that always happens. They always say, hey, I got a story about Abilene, blah, blah, blah. And this person proceeded to tell me a ghost story about a haunted hotel there, which story that story wasn't really, it wasn't really much to it. They saw a woman that had like a green dress on, but her lower part of her body was like not there. So it was like she was walking and they could hear the ruffling of the dress, but they didn't see the legs or whatever. And I thought, oh, that's interesting, but it wasn't really long, and it wasn't really it wasn't a lot of meat to it. And so I said, well, I thank you for the story, and I said, I'll tell it on the show if I have a segue into it or something, and whatever, but I'm not for sure. And he said, well, my cousin's got a story about Dogman. And I said, okay. So the cousin gets in touch with me, and boy, did they have a story about Dogman. It wasn't just a story about Dogman, it was Dogmen, plural. They used to work at a restaurant, and this restaurant had it was like a vacant area behind there with like trees and stuff, but like kind of scrubby looking trees. They weren't real big. It wasn't like it was, to where it was, something could hide very well. But one night when they were taking out the trash, this is just one of like a couple things that happened. They saw these two creatures, like that looked like they were moving behind the brush. And they went at each other like they were like he was watching it. It looked like they were stalking each other. And he said that they looked really thin in the waist. They were on all fours, and they didn't. And one of them looked like it was almost sickly, and the other one just looked like it was thin. But the one that was a little healthier looking attacked the weaker looking one, and he said that it proceeded to just this violent fight, and it was horrible, and he could hear all this going on. So he ran back inside and he told one of the cooks it was right there, and he said this happened back in the late 80s, whatever. It was a long time ago. And he said, hey, come here and take a look at this. It's crazy, So this guy goes out there with him, and they see these two creatures, dog wolf-like creatures. At this point, we're up on their hind legs, and we're just going at each other and biting each other. And then the stronger, bigger one actually retreated. The one that initiated the attack, it looked like it bailed and ran away. So it was interesting that the smaller, more sickly looking one prevailed. And then they said when they looked at this thing, they saw it was kind of limping, and it got back down on all fours, and it was and then when it noticed them, instead of it beating a retreat or going, oh shoot, I've been seen, it starts going toward them, running at them. And so they just ran away from the trash can, ran back inside and closed the door to the back, and were freaked out. And they said that, and this happened, this didn't happen in Abilene, this happened near Fort Worth. Back in the late 80s or whatever. I think they said 1989. And he was trying to remember what year it was, and he said that the 49ers had won the Super Bowl, and I was like, and I started to vomit. Once I gathered my composure, I was like, okay, it was probably 88, 89, one of those horrible years. Anyway, it was disgusting, that was how I remembered it. But anyway, I think it was one of those years. But anyway, this happened, and this creature went toward him. Really crazy. And then so one night when he was leaving this restaurant where he worked at, He was a line cook or whatever. Him and another guy, they were out there walking and they were smoking cigarettes, like they just finished working. They were all, ready to go home, whatever. And they hear this growling noise and they look over and they see this thing with its head kind of ducked up underneath a car. Just like a regular, he said it was like a regular little car, like a little Toyota car or whatever. And it was up under there and it was like it was moving back and forth. Like it was stuck. So it was big enough to crawl up underneath a late 80s Toyota. He didn't tell me what kind. He couldn't remember what kind it was. But he said he knew it was like a little Toyota car. He goes, this thing was stuck. And he said then they kind of watched it for a second and then it moved up and the entire car came up and came back down. And the car belonged to the dishwasher. And so they took off running and got in their car and he gave the guy a ride. And then the next day, and he dropped him off at his house, and the next day he drove him back to work. Pretty crazy story. The description of these things looked like it had a really, really long snout. It wasn't the short, bear-like, muzzled snout-looking thing that you've heard about before. It was a long snout, not pointy, not real long, tall ears, short, normal ears, a mouth full of teeth that looked abnormal. Teeth were just flying out of its mouth. Not literally coming out, but like they were jutting out. And that this thing had a terrible odor to it. And they don't know the one that was underneath the car, if that was the same one that was in the fight with the other one or what. But it appeared to be a large canid type creature, which I'm pretty sure, it's probably the same thing. The descriptions match. Now, was it the same exact creature that was involved in the fight? I have no idea. And what was the fight about? I have no idea about that either. Was it a territorial thing? Was one of them sick or weak and it needed to be dispatched? I have no idea. Your guess is as good as mine of what he saw. All I know is this is what I was told. Deborah Norsworthy says, hey, PRT family, glad everyone's doing well. Have a great night. Handsome as always, Josh. Oh, thank you. I'm fixing to go to Tennessee, Lewisburg. I'm in Roswell, New Mexico. Oh, wow, Roswell. That's another strange city I've been to many times. Finally got out of the hospital, have congestion heart failure. Oh, no. Please, folks, pray for Deborah. Deborah Norsworthy. Thank you for tuning in, Deborah. That was pretty much what killed my mother. She had a stroke, but it was based on her heart failure. Her heart valve replacement had started to fail, and they took her off of her Coumadin because she can't do the surgery with the blood thinners because she'll bleed to death. When they took her off the Coumadin, then she had the stroke. So, this is a scary thing, congestive heart failure. Everybody pray for Deborah Norsworthy, please. Reading some of these. Mish says, have you ever heard of anything called little growers, like psychic or shamanistic stuff? I don't know. Elaborate. I can't. SEP 165, 165th crew, whatever, says Sleepy Hollow is 30 minutes from my home. Tell us about that area. I've never been up there, so I don't know. Matt M says, I love my PRT t-shirt, green UFO and cryptids on black. I get good comments on it. Hi, B. Everybody's say hello to Bettina. Corley Canner says, yeah, sorry your guest backed out. It wasn't his fault. We got going so late because I was dealing with work obligations. Yeah. Seb 165th Crew says it's right on the Hudson River. Wow. The little T-Rex in West Texas. I thought that was in South Texas. The T-Rex stories I've heard, I think there might be one in West Texas. I don't know. I have to go back and look and see what I got. It says a 21-foot pike block was not for use against man. Fight giants, yeah. You don't need a ballista firing 4-foot arrows for a man. A catapult would be great too. You get the idea. What are you talking about, Richards? That's why people use scary spears and such. Holly says, I guess the smaller, sickly Dogman had nothing to lose at that point. He was all in and willing to die, and the stronger one may have picked up on that and hightailed it out of there. Maybe you're right. But if those are physical flesh and blood creatures that are that way all the time, which we're constantly being argued back and forth, whether or not that's the truth or the case, it would stand to reason that there would be some kind of one of them, if they end up like it's sickly or it's hurt or whatever, it looks weak compared to the other one. From a physical standpoint, I would think that the bigger, stronger one would prevail and kill the other one. But if they're not, to me, it lends more credence that they may not be, because the other one might have just been more evil, more practiced, more, who knows, dude? I mean, and it may have been skinwalkers. You just don't know. Jane Wolf says there are dinosaur sightings in Sedona, Arizona. Yeah, Sedona's got a lot of weird stuff. I think that Sedona has a large population of weird creatures. I think there's a portal there. I think there's a vortex would be more like it. It's a little different than a portal. AB Dark Moon says, ran into something in Defiance, Ohio. Looked like a large black hyena or chow. Stepdad told me he had a deer dead in his pond and drug it out. Found tracks big as his hand that took it out. Yeah, the Defiance werewolf. Those are stories. There's a lot of towns, man, that have legends and stories of werewolves that we're just now starting to hear more about, because they're just local legends and stories that really don't get outside of that until the internet sort of changed it. It sort of changed to where now you hear about these stories and you're starting to see these things, and and before it was just like it was just local lore and legends, and you would go to those places and you'd find it. Now you can just look it up. Corley says, any more blob stories? Saw one when I was a kid moving around in a motorcycle. I don't know what you're trying to say there. That's weird. You saw one. That's crazy. I don't get many stories like that. And since that episode aired, I think I've gotten like two. And actually, I can tell you that one. This one was pretty interesting. It happened in Eugene, Oregon, right outside of it. It was raining, and this couple was out right outside of Eugene in the woods. And when it rained, little droplets of pinkish white goo were flying from the sky with the rain. And there was so much of it that it got on their skin, and a couple days of rash, and eventually it went away. And that happened back in, I think they said 1996 or 7. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what they said it was. But that's a weird story. And then I had one from, I think, like 2006. This one's kind of weird. Okay. Actually, this is a good one. And I'm glad you brought the blob thing, because this was a story I was going to do for a potluck episode. But I don't know how many more shows I got left in me. I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know how we're going to do this. So I'll tell you this one. And it's funny because we were talking about malls and whatever. This happened in a department store. Okay? This happened in a department store in Wisconsin. And I believe it was in Madison, Wisconsin, where this happened. I believe that's correct. I don't have my notes in front of me. So, folks, if I get some of the places and anyway, it was a listener of the show, and she said, I had a weird story about a blob that happened to me. And at first, I'm not going to lie, I thought this person's full of poop. Okay. Toilets. I know, jokes. This person's full of poop because they said that it happened in the restroom of a department store. And I thought that they were pulling my leg, and I was like, are you joking, man? Is this a joke, dude? This is what she said. She said she went to the restroom, and she was like, she had to go. She said number one, like really bad. She had to go, and she's like, I didn't care. I was just like, whatever. So, she's like, and I go in the first stall, and it was just, it was disgusting. I wasn't going to sit down. So she said, I went to the second stall. Man, we don't have that problem. If we got to do that, we got urinals. But still, somehow, the men's restroom manages to look like, a great deluge. Like, there's water everywhere. I've even seen water on the ceiling, which I don't even know how it gets up there. What do? You wash your hands, you go like this? Ha! You can't just wash your hands. There's water everywhere. And if you're a guy, this is the truth. This is really the freaking truth. Why is there water everywhere? And every toilet seat has urine on it. And there's urine in front of all the urinals. Guys go in there and just like, the slip and slides with the sprinklers or whatever. That's what it looks like. I have no idea, but we get back to the story, but that's my beef with that. Anyway, she went into the restroom, and there it was a mess in the first stall. She goes to the second stall, and she sees something, but it just looked like somebody had dumped like gel or something in there. She said it had a really light blue haze to it, but that it was mostly clear. And she was like, but it was a large, whatever. And she's like, I had to go so bad I didn't care. She's like, it would take a few seconds in and out, and I was going to be, whatever. She was working in a department store, and she was helping a customer, and she said, I got to use the restroom, be right back. She goes to sit down, and she feels something touch her leg, and she jumps up, and she's like, oh, man. And she looks down, and this blob gel-like thing was moving over the toilet seat. Like, as soon as she began to relieve herself, that's what this thing did. Over the toilet seat. And she's like, I stood there in shock, and she's like, and I opened the stall door and was like, I was backing up, and she said that it began to like kind of, it was a form, like there was a form of it. She said that it was about 6 to 8 inches around, as she could see, it was like pretty large. Not large if you compare it to the size of a human. It's like, but large. It was filling up the toilet, whatever. And then it slipped down out of the toilet and was sliding toward the other toilet, the dirty, nasty toilet or whatever. And she thinks that it went into that toilet. And she was like, I don't know. Maybe it was feeding. She didn't have any repercussions from it touching her. Nothing came of it. But she saw it, and she's like, I don't know what that was. And she's like, I never use that restroom again. She's like, I would walk all the way out and go to the other restroom, which was clear across the building, whatever. Yeah. Well, Holly, it is water, but it's also, but yeah, like the water, like it's all over the counter. Like you walk into a men's restroom, and I'm not going to lie, ladies, you ladies do some pretty gross stuff too. I'm not going to get into that because I was working at a nightclub, and I would go in there and go, good God. And I even had 2 bouncers actually come to blows. And you know who you are. Literally. Yeah. Come to blows. Eddie, one of my good friends, he got into a fight with one of the newer guys because we had to make the bouncers to clean the women's restroom. It was so bad that the guys didn't want to do it. So we had to make them rotate. We had to rotate them out. So the same people weren't doing it over and over again. Because they were terrible. Way worse than the men's restroom. Men's restroom was just wet. There's just like water everywhere. And a lot of men will not go, I don't know if you ladies know this or not, but they won't go number 2 in a men's bathroom because the guys go in there and they urinate all over the toilet seats. That's why I don't do it. I mean, it's just they just go and they don't care. They don't, if the urinals are full, they'll just go into the, I don't know. I don't understand that either, because I've been there and there's been like 4 urinals, and guys will walk in and go right past you and go and just take a leak into the stalls. I guess they like the privacy or whatever, but they're just doing it all over the toilet seat, and that's what we have to deal with as men. Now, women, y'all do. I don't know why you do what you do. I have not figured that out. But I had guys that literally came to blows because it was like, my turn. No, it's your turn. I did it last time. I'm not doing it again. And blah, blah, blah. Well, you do it. Well, you make me. And blah, blah, blah. And then the fight, then punches were thrown to avoid cleaning the woman's bathroom. That's how bad it was. And Scorpion and D, if y'all are on here, you can attest to that. Y'all are moderating tonight, I guess. But hold on one second, folks. Yeah. Yeah, I was wondering about that myself. Maybe it was feeding, which is pretty gross, but some sort of living bulbous goo ball, Somebody says women's bathrooms were the worst when I worked at Staples. Yeah, I try not to. I've had to pop in here in Austin. They've done this. They've gone to this gender neutral bathroom thing, which has led to a lot of establishments. In fact, most of them just take advantage of it. And what they do is they have one that's just for their employees, and then they have another one that's for the public, and they just call that gender neutral bathroom, where they used to have a male and a female bathroom. Now they have like their bathroom, which I would hazard to guess is way cleaner than the public's bathroom. And then they have the gender neutral public bathroom, which I'm going to say, maybe it's because more people are using it, but I'm going to be real honest with you. Since they've switched to this gender neutral bathrooms all over the city, which has taken place in the last few years, the bathrooms are way nastier. That's not an indictment on you ladies. I'm not saying that y'all came into our bathrooms and messed them all up. Because before they were just wet. Water everywhere. It was like a water park. And you walk around, you're like, oh God, it's just water all over the place. I don't know. I don't know what the fluid is. Maybe, water and, people are peeing. I don't know. But since the gender neutral thing happened, the bathrooms are a scary place. And I've been in so many of them, and I'm like, good gosh, dude. And I've had to duck into the ladies' restroom a couple times because there were people that they're camping out, and they do this. These homeless people in Austin will go, not all of them, they're not all bad people, but some of them really just don't care. And they will go and camp out in the men's bathroom or woman's bathroom, and you'll just be sitting there for an hour, 2 hours, and I don't know if they're sleeping in there and eventually employee will have to go and tell them, because I was literally at a Jason's Deli. I don't know if y'all have those where you're at. And there was a guy making a scene because there was somebody in the bathroom, and he finally he kept getting up to go to the bathroom, and he finally just went up to the counter, and I heard him like yelling to the manager saying, somebody's in there, you need to check because it's been over an hour. This is what the guy was saying. I don't know why you'd be at Jason's Deli for an hour. It don't take me an hour to eat there. But anyway, he's like, I've been here with my wife for an hour, and there's somebody in there. They could be dead. And so this person got the manager. Finally, the manager goes in and knocks, and you hear somebody, like, so it's a homeless person in there. And the guy just throws his hands up and says, okay, and then they just left. Well, in that situation there, if you have to use the restroom that bad and you're waiting, I'd just go to the woman's bathroom. I wouldn't even mess with it. So, that's terrible. Dick Richards says lots of needles and people dying of fentanyl in Canadian bathrooms. It's gross. Oh, man. But, you got to use the bathroom real bad. I've ducked in the woman's bathroom. I mean, I'll knock, I'll, make sure there's nobody in there, but I have no choice. I mean, like, I have to go. I take a certain medication that makes me urinate at times where I don't have a choice. I have to do what I got to do. And so I'm not going to sit around and wait for one of these homeless people to come out of the men's bathroom or finish sleeping in there, or whatever they're doing. So one day I was at a Chipotle, and I went in there, and this was scarier than any ghoul or ghost I've ever seen in my life, anything I've ever heard. It was just, I went in there and I was like, wow. It looked like somebody had gone in there and just decided to destroy the bathroom. Like, they were on a mission. Like, they went in there, it was like they were getting paid to destroy this thing. Like, hey, we got your family, we're holding them hostage. You go destroy that bathroom at Chipotle or they all get it. And so, you know what? They did it. They went in there on their mission, and they destroyed the bathroom, and then that was it. They called back, release my family. Release the hostages, mission complete. And dude, I'm not joking, it was bad. And I was so overwhelmed by the sheer disgustingness, I guess I should say, that I actually just held it and nearly, wet my trousers just to get out of there. Was it a demon? Maybe. I'll say maybe. It is. I mean, I'm not gonna take it off the table. Could have been. And so I've heard so many stories too, and this is weird. I've heard stories about restrooms being haunted. Restrooms. There is a cilantro. It's called cilantro, and it's very good. It's a Korean infused with like Mexican. It's really crazy. It's really good, and it's pretty healthy. You can get, you can pick the items, kind of like at a Chipotle, and you can pick the items, and you can make it a pretty healthy meal. And you can make it to where it's pretty low in sodium, which is good for me because I need to eat healthy and eat lower sodium. I've been gaining weight because of my freaking elbow. I'm finally able to work out again. I've only had a couple workouts back, but hopefully I'll get a few more in before the conference and I won't look like a total blob. But, I did gain a good 20 pounds being freaking hurt, which sucks because I was doing good for a while. I was really starting to hit it and lose weight and whatever. Nature had other ideas. But so I go in there one day and I had a really weird feeling. I went to the restroom, and this wasn't nothing disgusting or anything. It was clean. They were gender neutral. There were two of them, but they were clean. But I had a really creepy feeling in there, and I felt like something was there. And I didn't say anything, and then my wife goes, and she uses the restroom. Like I said, they were clean. The Chipotle restroom, not Chipotle, not that one. The cilantros are usually pretty clean. And so the cilantro right over there on Burnett Road, there's two of them on Burnett Road. This one is farther south, okay, on Burnett Road right here in Austin. And I go in there, and I just get a really creepy feeling. So I started talking to one of the managers one day when I went in there, and she's like, yeah, this place is haunted. Our restrooms are haunted. And then a psychic had actually come and told them that they had an entity back there. And eventually, get this, I was in there one day, and I had this weird feeling, like there were these pictures on the wall, and one of them was like Willie Nelson, and one of them was like, which is another weird coincidence, because I just saw somebody say something about Willie Nelson way back up on the thread. But it was like one of Willie Nelson, who stays here. So his pictures, it's not uncommon to see his ugly face. So he's right there on the wall, and then there's like a picture of downtown Austin or something like that. And then there was another picture of somebody, I can't remember who. I didn't really pay a lot of attention to it. But I felt like that picture was looking at me. Like it was, and so the psychic came and told the manager that the entity lives in the pictures. So I went there one day, and the pictures were all gone. And so I asked the manager, who was a different manager now, and he said, yeah, we took them down. because there was a lot of people complaining about weird stuff happening in those bathrooms. The Muslims believe that jinn inhabit restrooms, that they like to be in the restrooms. Why? I don't know, but that's what they believe. Lance says that's Uncle Willie here in Austin. Yeah, the thing I don't like about Willie Nelson is, and I'll be real honest, I've been to his concert. I mean, and he seemed like a pretty nice guy, but to me, it's not about his music, it's about his mindset. Like, he doesn't like his fan base. He's very, very left, very, very socialist minded. Always has been. He's very liberal. That's not why I don't like him. But all of his fans are country music people, tend to be conservative, and they pay a lot of money to go to his concerts and to listen to this guy and whatever. And 90% of his fans are like that. And he is completely opposite of that. So he's making money off of a fan base that he doesn't appreciate. He doesn't have their mindset. He doesn't really like them. He doesn't vote their way. So if you were a person that leaned to the left, why would you support a person who openly shuns you? Or if you were a person that leans to the right, I mean, this guy, his music and everything is geared toward you, and you're listening to it. But he does it with every penny he gets. He turns around and uses it against you. So you're paying this guy to be like, So I guess that's my biggest problem with him. And he's not really totally open about it. But I know people who've talked to him, and he's been pretty open with them when he gets to smoking, whatever. And so that's my whole issue with him, is just like, dude, the people that you support, Willie, don't support you and your music. Most of them are not, most of them are very conservative, right-leaning people, and he's benefiting and profiting from them. And then he's against them. So that's. I have a problem with that. I just think that that's not correct. Like the same thing, with Chris Christopherson years ago. He was on a show way back in the 80s, and it was, about communism had taken over and the Russians had taken us over. Growing up in the 80s during the Cold War, folks, there was a lot of that. It was always like Red Dawn, and we're all going to die from the Russians, blah, 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 Ivan Drago, and the Russians were going to come and just, it was, they were going to destroy us all. And we were all under the threat of nuclear war. Russia and China basically, were just going to kill us all, which is still not off the table. But anyway, basically what it was this guy, Chris Christopherson, he made a comment about, well, if socialism did take hold, I don't think it would be as bad as everybody. He made some kind of comment like that, which years later I revisited that, and I thought, that's pretty crappy, considering here's another one that he was with Johnny Cash and Merle Haggard, who are both very right-leaning, and Willie Nelson, and they were in that group called the Outlaws or whatever they were, which is pretty good. It was pretty good. I guess it would be quartet or quartet would be the word. They're a pretty good quartet, and they had pretty good music. I like some of theirs. And so whenever you say things like that, and you're basically pointing out that you lean that way, and you're still willing to just completely, just make money off of, the other side, I think it's wrong. I think you should be, more open about it. If most of your fan base is a certain way, and you're feeding off of that, and you don't support them in any way, I think it's pretty crappy. That's my thing. I don't know. Says, okay, well, case solved. Slimer has been creating shower blob babies from onion energy. What does the onion have to do with anything? I don't get this. Yeah. I mean, I can get Slimer, what maybe Slimer took a poop. I don't know. Yeah, Lance John Conlon. Yeah, I don't know. If you hear that song that Willie Nelson sings about Poncho and Lefty, and how Lefty betrayed Poncho, it's kind of funny. It's kind of telling to me. I don't know. But Lance Collins says, yes, he's a true lefty, the left I used to be and miss. See, he's right about what because when I first moved here years ago, Austin was always a very liberal-minded city. But the liberals didn't really bother me. Like, it didn't bother me. It was like, it was kind of like this kind of smoking, hey, man, live and let live. You do you, I do me. You don't bother me, I don't bother you. It's just a weird thing, dude. I mean, like, I don't totally agree with their views and whatever, but I'm not like, I don't really care, like, you have your opinions, have your views, but there came a shift, I should say. More and more people came to this city, and it became more of a sort of militant, like somebody said, the woke left. Now, I'm awake. Woke people are not. There's two different things. Okay, these people became like, I don't know what it is. They're not like the left that I used to know that was just like, yeah, there's the right and then there's the left. And there were things I agreed with about on both sides. I was always pretty in the middle, I just don't understand like this whole militant, like basically like angry communist left came, and they've pushed the original left so far off the meters, it's off the charts, that a lot of people that were diehard left Democrats and were live and let live people have literally been pushed either away from the left to the center, or they've just dropped out altogether, or they've gone to the right. Because there's people, that have told me, like, couple people I do business with. I mean, they've told me, they were like, we were, not hippy dippy, but they were, basically, live and let live. They voted Democrat. They were to the left. But the whole, militant left came in and they switched teams, or they dropped out altogether. Because some of them just couldn't bear the thought of, voting for a Republican or but they just dropped out. They're just like, I'm just not going to be a part of this. I don't know. My dad was always a hardcore Democrat who supported him no matter what. And then in the last few years, I think I know he's not voting Republican because he just won't do it. But I think he's just dropped out. But I think a lot of people are like that now, Jennifer, I totally agree. Poncho is my favorite Willie song, but I'm straight down the middle. I am for common sense. Far right and far left are equally toxic. Let's vote based on what benefits the greater good, not party lines. A lot of this, too, that's another thing. It's like they're voting for a football team. It's like, I'm a Cowboys fan and you're a Packers fan, so I'm going to vote for my Cowboys regardless of what happens. They could pass the most horrendous, most horrific laws that the mankind has ever seen. They could have public executions for chewing gum on the wrong day, and I'm still going to vote for them. During the election, this last election, I saw the most despicable things. I saw people saying things like, "Oh, I don't care if Biden kills a kid in front of, I'd still vote for him." And people said the same thing with Trump. They were like, I don't care what he does. I don't care how many girls he grabs or what he did or whatever. I'd still vote for him no matter what he does. Which I think is reprehensible. I mean, like, you had this guy up there sniffing kids' hair over and over again. And the left was just like, oh, well, we're still going to support him. We don't care. We don't give a crap. Like they were saying, even if one lady was on Reddit and she said even if he did that to her daughter, she would still vote for him. Think about that. That's crazy. That's off the charts crazy. Here's something kind of weird. In Washington, and where Congress meets, in the Senate and all that, or the whatever, that whole area is known to be overrun with sightings of weird stuff. In the Senate, people claim to see a demonic black cat on a regular basis that appears before every election. Have you heard about this? This is crazy. Like, these are the people that run our world, right? And there's all these weird, shadowy, demon, things, and like, why do you think that is? Do you not see? And then look at how evil Hollywood is. I watched that movie Black Phone with my wife. You know what that movie is? That's an allegory. It's a metaphor. The devil abducting children, he's abducting children, right? It's the guy the whole time Ethan Hawke had the mask on. That mask was either halfway on the bottom or halfway on the top. But the whole time he had that mask on in some form or another. It was a devil mask. And I'm not going to give it all away, but in the end, the kid gets supernatural help and they all work together, and check it out. And you'll see what I'm talking about. Yes. Overbuilt automotive. Yes. You're absolutely right. It says Rethink Inc. That's because our nation was meant to be a constitutional republic, not a democracy. That's right. Democracies don't work. It says Rome was a democracy. Actually, Rome was not a democracy. Rome was a republic. And it didn't work because it became a dictatorship, which was great when Julius Caesar and then later Augustus for 40 years was in charge. But as soon as Augustus was gone and Tiberius ascended the throne, oh man. And Tiberius created the devil we knew as Caligula by killing his family and doing all the horrible things he did. Tiberius he fathered that. And then there was Caligula. And then Claudius, he came back in and tried to do some good, but it was short-lived because Agrippina, who he married, ended up having her son that was from another person, Nero. And Nero, if anybody knows, was the Antichrist. Look it up. 666 in ancient Greek text spells Nero Caesar. He was an Antichrist, but these things run in cycles. They go again and again and again. They happen again and again. And so I think we will see more and more Antichrists that keep coming. Angela Pileggi says, Black Phone was a good movie, but definitely disturbing. I felt something was up with the mask, too, symbolically. Because all these children, they go missing. Really weird. So if you go and you look, and get this, Nero Caesar, who was 666, the Antichrist, right? His dying words were, what an artist the world is losing, when he died. He said that, what an artist the world is losing. Think about that. He fancied himself an artist. He thought he was an actor. Back in the Roman times, going back into the Greek times, and in ancient China, in all the ancient civilizations you can possibly come up with, there is no society up until the 20th century that acting, the profession of being an actor, that acting was considered a noble or a cool profession. It became a cool thing during 20th century Hollywood. Hollywood literally, Angela Pileggi, okay? Pileggi, I'm going to call you Pileggi because I like the way it sounds better. Sorry. So anyways, Hollywood made acting be a respected profession not only accepted, but a respected profession, and even glamorized and glorified these people. Let me tell you something, folks, and I know some actors. Actually, I know quite a few. I don't want to step on toes and make people mad, because some of the ones I've known have been quite nice to me, but then there are some that are prima donna little punks, and I could care less about them. But I'm going to say something. Acting was not an honorable profession, and nobody took actors seriously. In ancient Roman times, in the city of Rome, in the town square, they had the original town crier. He would lift up the scroll, and he would say, "There is a festival tonight. Freedmen, non-Roman citizens, actors are not allowed to attend." If you were an actor, you were shunned by a large portion of society. You were kind of on the level of like a street vendor, but not as useful. You were kind of like a court jester with leprosy. Look this up. You think I'm joking? But somehow in our society, we've taken these people that are good at pretending to be something, and then they elevate them to the status of, you're an awesome person, and we're going to make you something. So the kingmakers, the people behind Hollywood and politics, they basically say who gets to be who gets to be what. And so, yeah, I mean, we sit up here and we're just like, wow, that's awesome, man. Look, they're on the red carpet. Yeah. Oh, it's cool. Who is she wearing? Oh, it's awesome. And you get these people who I can't even name most of them. I know a few people, but the other ones I don't know. I don't keep up with. I can't name them. Yeah, and it says here, sure shouldn't be idolized, especially modern day, just powers and pretenders and sellouts. That's all they are. If you're good at pretending, that's your skill, is that you can basically lie and look at the camera and say whatever your lines are and make people believe it, and you're basically good at that. It doesn't sound right, does it? I mean, it's kind of like I was saying about the Willie Nelson thing. It just, I actually like some of Willie Nelson's music. Just don't like the way he does that. Like, I don't think he should be collecting money off the backs of people he doesn't like. Be real. I mean, at least be real to yourself. But, yeah. And I think that there is an element of our society who is absolutely committed to turning everything upside down. What is good is bad, and what is bad is good. And just because enough people scream it and say it doesn't make it okay. And you can say something until your ass bleeds, it doesn't make it true. And so, as I hear the Amber Heard trial expose that, you're damn right. Yeah, just the other day, there was a scene where Johnny Depp walked in and she goes, oh. I'm like, she's not even a good actress. Okay? Aquaman, I don't understand. So, how are we glorifying and putting on a pedestal people that even in the Roman times and in the Greek times and even in ancient China, they were looked down upon, like, these people they're court jesters at best, and at worst, they're just psychologically disturbed people. And now in our society, we're over here like, oh, they're great, they're wearing Louis Vuitton. Do you wear Louis Vuitton, or is that just a purse? I don't know. They're wearing something fabulous, It's crazy. And if you go and watch that movie, you see that's representative of the devil controlling people and and manipulation. If you think that the rumors about Hollywood are just that, rumors, you're out of your mind. I can tell you, there's a lot of actors that come to Austin and have been for 2-3 decades. Been coming here and spending a lot of time here. I've met a lot of them. Met some of them in my club. Met some of them down, 6th Street. And I can tell you right now, some of them are good, decent seeming people, and then some of them are just completely drug-addled, and they are just reprehensible. And they would not be above doing anything bad. They don't care. It doesn't surprise me when I hear about Hollywood actors and actresses, haunting, things and doing, because it just kind of seems that would be the case. You hear about their haunting this and that because they're in life. They are, a lot of them are real hardcore narcissists, like really hardcore narcissists. Like they all live in their own little world, and they're all about me, me, me. You know what I mean? And so they believe in their own bullcrap. They buy into their own hype and press. And so a lot of these performers and actors and whatever, the lines are all blurred now. If you're a rapper, you become an actor and vice versa. It's just like... So you get all these weird, like, not good people, whatever. And when they die, they're clinging and hanging on to this world because this was the world that supported and fed their narcissism. So that's why they are, when they die, it's because somebody had, and I'll say this because one of my listeners had posed the question to me, why are so many actors and musicians and all these different people, why are they, you hear so many about those stories about their ghosts haunting particular places and inhabiting areas and things like that. It's because it's very simple. They don't want to move on. Would you, if you put all your eggs into this Matrix world, so you could be cool, you could be one of the cool kids, and you went along with all the evil and all the devil worship and all the baloney that they're pushing? Sound like a conspiracy theory, huh? Yeah. It's real. I can tell you that. Someone says, poor Gaga can't even sleep alone because she's scared to death. The devil will get her. Wasn't she spirit cooking with whatever her name was? Maliolkovich, some name, I don't know, whatever her name is. And maybe you shouldn't be playing with stuff. If you're not ready for the consequences, if you're scared of the boogeyman, don't conjure him up. Don't do it. I'll give you a case in point. And this is a story right here. Got another one, a Ouija board. I get Ouija board stories constantly now, especially since I started doing a lot of, I was in one of the ghost groups and I saw somebody post something about they had their mother-in-law contact them through a Ouija board. Here's the thing. The mother-in-law had ran off with some guy and was gone for several years. This guy and his wife, who was fiance at the time, became his wife, had used the Ouija board, and the mother, his mother-in-law, her mother, his wife's mother, contacted them. Said that, she had died, and that it was horrible. Somebody had killed her, and her body was, whatever, something, blah, blah, blah. All this big bunch of crap. So this is in Canada. So they contacted the Canadian authorities, and they said, hey, I think that my mother disappeared, and she went down to, and according to the story, she died in the United States. She had run off with some guy, and she died in the United States. So they went out and they renewed an investigation. This is a person that didn't want to be found, right? That's why she bailed. Left her dad or whatever. So they renewed like an investigation in the United States. And I think that her dad was just not really caring that she had left and wasn't really caring to find her and just figured he got the kids, let her run off with her lover, and that was the end of it, right? Well, after this Ouija board session, she was convinced that her mother had been murdered. So she tells the authorities or whatever, and so they look into it in Canada. I think they lived like in Montreal or something like that. And they found that she was living in like Vermont or something. I think it was Vermont or Delaware, one of them two. But she was living there and had been for 10 years. She was still alive. She had gotten married and her name had changed. And she was on her second husband since leaving. So she's obviously an unstable person. But the point is this demonic spirit in this Ouija board said, yeah, I'm your deceased mother. I'm dead, blah, blah, blah. I was murdered brutally, whatever. It's a bunch of bullcrap. So what this has to do with what we're talking about, folks, is that these people that go to Hollywood or they become singers, because a lot of them, they're musicians and singers, songwriters, and blah, 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 what have you. They're entertainers. They're people who, for centuries, millennium, were looked at as lower. That's a low-born profession. The low-born professions, literally, prostitution, usury, and acting. A person that shod shoes for a horse was thought at a way higher level. A person that sold cabbages and lettuce and beets and radishes was considered a higher level born person than an actor. Think about that. So, if you really stop and you look at that and you think about it, it really kind of makes you think, you know what I mean? Like, these are the people we put up on a pedestal, dude. Why do you think Matt Stone and Trey Parker showed up on acid wearing dresses at the what do you call it? The awards. I don't even know what it's called. The Oscars or Grammy or something. Emmy. I don't know, an Emmy. I don't know what the heck they're called. I don't care. I hate all those people. But anyway, they showed up. I like Matt Stone and Trey Parker. I'm not talking about them. But they showed up and they're like, this is stupid. Like, who cares? And they're all like, I'm so offended. I can't believe it. What would you expect from the people who do, hey guys, come on, you guys, seriously, my ass, come on, seriously. I mean, these guys voice Cartman. I mean, come on, dude. I mean, like, Kyle and Kenny and what's his face, Stan, I mean, that's who they are. And you're appalled and aggravated at their behavior. What did you think was going to happen? And you got what you deserve, too, because I'm glad they trolled you. Seriously, you guys, seriously. I'm so fat. I'm seriously. But, I can't understand the people who give these people any attention, and 90%, I'll be honest, are women. The women in our society are not bagging on you ladies, but y'all love them. I mean, this guy was on this deal the other day, and he asked all these historical questions, like how did we, the questions about the First Amendment, Second Amendment, every type of question, history, everything. Who fought in the Civil War? Who was the president during the Civil War? Basic stuff. The first president of our country, what year it was founded. They couldn't tell you anything, but as soon as they said, can you name the Kardashians? Kylie, Krusty, whatever, Critter, Crustacean, I don't know their names. They start with C's and K's, I don't know. Kim, I think Kim is one. Is it Kim Kardashian? They could name every one of them. Every one of them. Who sang this song? Taylor Swift. I know her because I saw her in a video yesterday. But it was actually, I think it was on Saturday Night Live with Pete Davidson, because I like Pete Davidson. But I was just like, dude, this is, this is ridiculous. This is how stupid we are. This is how stupid our society has become. So you have all these goofy people who can't name, they can't even name. How many states are there? 54? People were saying the dumbest things, like 28, 25. Like, are you kidding me? They asked this one guy, this is pathetic. I mean, I wanted to slap him so hard. They're like, what country is Hawaii in? And he goes, oh, Hawaii is its own country, dude. It was on a YouTube video, a Facebook video. I was like, are you kidding me? Hawaii is its own country. Then he goes, the guy was really clever. I can't remember the guy's name, but he's like, oh yeah, that's right. What country did it break away from? He goes, I don't know, like Japan or Taiwan. I'm like, or he didn't say Taiwan. He said something else, some other crap, because I don't think he even knew Taiwan existed. He probably thinks Taiwan is some city, in Hawaii. That's where we're at. And, somebody told me the other day too. They said, "Hey," and this is a friend of mine. And he does this, and I'm not going to put him on the spot, but he was like, "Hey, you want to get more listeners, you need to do this and do that and do this fancy thing and this thing and that." And I said, yeah, I can get 1 million more listeners. And half of them will be brain dead idiots. And I'm not bagging on them. Good for them. They have a huge bunch of listeners, people, and got several of my friends that do it, and they're doing way better than me with the numbers. But a lot of them are just doing YouTube. They didn't spread it out and be nice like I did. I made that mistake. I should have just consolidated it and could have made enough to support the show, which I didn't do. And so this person was telling me that, and I was like, yeah, you're right. I could make a lot, but I wouldn't have the level of listeners I have now that listen to what I'm saying on Tuesdays, that are educated, that are smart, that ask smart questions. Yeticus says, discussion of stupid people will last forever. They'll always be stupid. Yes. Yeah. And facing the crowd. Says Eminem says, some YouTubers have sold their souls on their shows. You're right. You're absolutely right. Or the show that I first came out on. He's like that. Facing the crowd, they want fame more than the fortune. Reason new hip-hop don't control their assets. It's only an illusion. They'll take it all away if they don't obey. Yeah, you're right. I was watching... the heck is his name? Kashi. What, Kashi, isn't that like a cereal or something? I don't know. He's got tattoos all over his face, and he's got hair, and he's a goofy looking turd. He up there like, hey, yo, you know what I'm saying? I got all these watches. 1 house, 2 house, 3 house, 4 house. Know what I'm saying? I got all this money. You know what I'm saying? He's got like Skittles for teeth. And he's got like crap all over his face. It looks like he literally took a marker and drew dollar signs on his face. He's a dumb little punk. I'd like to knock the living crap out of him. But what good would it do? He ratted on some people and they all went to jail, and he's bragging about how he got away with whatever he did. I don't know. He's a little punk. Takashi 9 or something. There you go. Takashi the Clown. Takashi 69. That's who he is. Yeah. Yeah, you, Takashi, you little jerk off, little turd. Anyways, that dude. And the watches were ugly as crap. I don't know what, I guess they had diamonds in them, but they had like plastic and blue, and they looked like these bright neon colors of the shoestrings we used to wear in the 80s that were not cool by the mid 80s. And you were like, ew, you're still wearing neon, that's gross. And he had those watches that looked like that. And I was like, look at that garbage you're wearing. That's 1 house, 2 house, 3 house, 4 house. Yeah, Snitch 9. And you're like, what in the heck are you talking about, dude? Those watches, I wouldn't be caught dead wearing it. If I died and somebody I knew put that watch on me in my casket, I would haunt them for the rest of my life, the rest of their lives. And then I would beat them senseless once they came over. I'm going to tell you right now, dude. All right? And I don't give a crap about this dude or any of these other fake people, goofy, whatever they are, singers, songwriters. They're all annoying. The pineapple heads, what are they called? The island bums. Those two little jerks, the little, they always got to show their teeth so you can see that their mouth is covered in gold plastic or some crap. You just want to knock their teeth down all their throats, dude. They're so sickening. And you could break them in half so easy. That little Kashi's legs are about that big around. He looked like, you needed to send him some money in a care package over there because he's dying of hunger or something, you know. At night, little Takashi goes to bed with only a bowl of rice and 2 small crusts of bread to eat. Please, for only 69 cents a day, little Takashi 69 can actually survive. Because he looks like somebody you need to send money to, because he looks like, you know, and then I read that he was like in court talking about how his finances are bad, he's not doing good. Ona Holly says, I have been to the City of Night but didn't know what it was till I heard you talk about it. The City of Night is a very interesting thing because I was there recently, not too long ago, probably, I think I had a dream about it probably a month ago, but like I said, I've said on the show, I don't believe that they're dreams. I'll tell you what the problem is. People probably don't know what I'm talking about when I talk about the City of Night, because it was one of the early episodes of my show, and it got one of the lowest views, like of my show for a while. It was one of the lowest viewed shows for a long time, and it was unfortunate. But I'll see if I can look it up real quick. Let's go to Paranormal Round Table. I'll tell you what number it is. It's way down there. We're at, like, you know, on the regular show, like 176. And we're at like 78 or something live streams. Episode 38 and episode 39. Still to this day, episode 39 is where I talk about it, I believe. And it's one of the lowest viewed shows I've ever had. Afterlife and Near-Death Experiences with Laura Ketchledge. She's an author. She had a near-death experience and she fell off a horse. And episode 39 only has 5.3 thousand views, but that's the one, I believe, where I talk about the City of Night. See, by contrast, Texas Wolfman has 26,000 views. It was 2 years ago. And that one's older than that one. It says Bigfoot and Dogman with Ken Gerhardt, episode 41. That got 18,000 views. That was only two episodes after. Here's a weird one right here. It says Paranormal Potluck with Lon Strickler. Part 1 got 12,000 views. And this says Paranormal Potluck with Lon Strickler. Part 2 got 15,000 views. And then Paranormal Potluck with Lon Strickler Part 3 got 13,000 views. So the Part 1 got the least amount of views. Episode 52, Night of the Goatman, got 16,000 views. That's a pretty good one. Wolfmen and Demon Dogs in Small Town, Texas, got 29,000 views. Immortals got 18,000 views. That's a pretty weird one. Beware of Dogs, 17,000. The Alaskan one I was talking about, episode 74, that was with David Weatherly. It got 19,000, and part 2 got 14,000. Yeah, there's a lot of them on here. A lot of episodes, man. So if I do stop for a while, or if I stop permanently, which it looks like it may happen, just remember, there's a lot of stuff here. I leave behind a lot of work. Sorry, I can't be Kashi 10-9, whatever his name is. So I can just go up there and make horrible popping, clicking noises and, you know, maybe make $1 bazillion. And then I could lift up my watches and go, hey, 1 half, hey, 2 halves, 3 half, 4 half. How about 5? Oh, that's your face. Overbuilt Automotive, yeah, I'll leave up the channel, for a while at least. I mean, if I do decide to leave. Let's put it this way. After the conference, I will take a hiatus of probably at least 2 weeks. Will I return? That's the question. I don't know. So this episode and then next episode, I don't even know if I'm going to do a Friday show. But this episode and next Tuesdays, I will do another live stream Tuesday. Before I leave for the conference, I'll be leaving on Thursday. Josh and Nokio's flying down, and we're gonna ride together with Ken Gerhard, and we're supposed to anyway. Nick Redfern and Lyle Blackburn. We're supposed to stay at Lyle Blackburn's house, which is but I don't know if that's I don't know what's gonna happen. We're supposed to stay in Fort Worth, and then we're all gonna go from there. That's the plan. Hopefully, if I don't get ill, that will work. And if you see me at the conference, that may be the last time that I do anything with this. And I'm not joking. I will probably not be back for a while, but just always remember the good times. Remember the good times. Matt Keene says, I had a near-death experience that saw hell, or maybe the city of night. I don't know that concept, but I've been haunted by demons ever since. And I had plenty of strange encounters like I'm having experiences now. Matt, send me your stories, man. All right, guys, that's all we have for tonight, man. I'm out of here, brothers and sisters. Keep your restrooms clean. We don't want blobs coming out of the toilet. We'll see you at the conference. And like I said, if nothing else, we have at least one more Tuesday together. So this isn't it. I'll try and put together a Friday show, but now that we're not dropping the Friday shows on, I guess my point is right now, there's no purpose in us doing the podcast because we're not really dropping them on other channels. So, I mean, outlets or however you say it. Can't see. Let me see here. Oh, wow. Tito. Can't say your name correctly. I'm sorry. But 100, thank you for that donation. That's a very generous donation. Yedicus asks the question, has all this made your storytelling for more like a job? No, not really. Having to come in and, like earlier today, I was kind of like, oh, I got to do this, time to make the donuts type thing. That used to be a commercial back in the 80s. The guy from Dunkin' was always tired, time to make the donuts. I just thought that was kind of a silly way to advertise because it's like you got this guy who's half asleep nodding and he's making your food. But it was the 80s and people were full of crap, about as much as they are now, but it's gotten more bad. Like they've always been full of crap, but now it's just more evil. But no, I don't think that's what it is. It's not like, I know this is a second job, but it's not like a job. It's just that I just don't have the financial side of it. It's my businesses can't take a back seat to the show because it doesn't make any financial sense for me to continue to put all this money into this and it's not going, it's not making like enough of a return to keep to, how do you say it? Like, doesn't make financial sense. Let's put it this way. That's it. I didn't start this to make money, but it's become so all-encompassing that I have to do so much with it. Always having to read stories and having to put the stories on the show, whatever, and constantly having to communicate with all these different people. And then I'm running a business, and then, like I said, trying to get another one off the ground. And it's a nightmare. I can't get things done with the show constantly. It's a hobby, and not really. It started out as a hobby, and now it's become a job. It's a jobby. Because I do make money from it, but I'm putting way more money into it than I'm getting out of it right now. And I can't justify it. You know what I mean? Like, my businesses are having to support the show and all the things that I'm doing for it. Like all the merchandise that I'll be taking with me to the conference, which is, if you go to the conference, it's going to be very unique merchandise. You're not going to see this merchandise anywhere else. And there's a lot of it that we've never had or produced, and it's for the conference. But it costs money. You know, you can make a subpar podcast and just go out there looking like crap. You know, put it out looking like crap, you know, and sound like crap or whatever. But you in order to do it and do it right, you have to put a lot of time and effort and energy into it. You have to actually nurture it and make it grow, you know. But anyway, peace out, yo. I'm out.